Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Jay Lawrence. I'm your tour guide for the day. This is the IŌC Daily Edge. Today's Monday, and we are going to start out by simply saying, phenomenal weekend. We want everybody to know that we're here for you. I've been hearing for some of the people saying, hey, we want to get some specifics on, various things. Some people know that we focus on helping individuals through trust and private foundations and title holding companies and real estate title holding companies and LLCs and just all this structure. So today, I think I should get into the weeds just a little bit and help individuals, understand it. We do this as a one-on-one, meaning 101 in basic training, if you will, to help people understand like what it means to actually have the right structure. Thus, when you're in business, structure is really the foundational key to your success. I'm going to share a few things with you today visually. I'm not going to use finger puppets today, right? Visually, because I want you to kind of come to grips with what some of your competition may have in the realm of how they, are able to sort of, build their business. Maybe they're outpacing you. Maybe they know things that you don't know. And that's really the determiner, right? It's like, what are you missing? What don't you know, right? And that in itself is, how can I say it? It's an inhibitor, right? Like you come to the point where the things that you need to know, you're questioning if the things you know are enough to cover what you don't know, right? It's this crazy dichotomy of like, how am I going to ensure that the work that we do is going to be, for all intents and purposes, is going to be like, additive to the lives of the people who, know me, love me, and trust me, right? And so if that happens, if you're ever in a scenario where you're just like, man, every time I, make a dollar, it seems as if that out of the entire dollar, when it comes to actually profit, like what you can retain, you're only really keeping 15 cents on the dollar. I mean, if you really look at it, like across the spectrum of what it means for, a business person, in this day and age, what does it really take, you to actually sort of, level up to the point where no matter what you do in life, for a fact that you're going to be positioning yourself and your family that you can live through the legacy of profits that were created. So meaning principally, this is really, probably one of the most important. Let me just give this as a principle, okay? And there's no pun intended when I say this principle, but hear me out. Most people don't realize that, number one, revenue in outside of a structure. So if you have just an LLC, typically you see revenue and then you see profit, okay? Revenue on one side, profit is obviously what's left over after all the expenses, okay? So diving into what those expenses can be, we're going to do that in a second at the LLC level versus what you can do when you actually have additional, let's call it structural business partners, right? These structural business partners are able to say, hey, from a strategy standpoint, maybe I should offload some of that revenue, pass it over to another entity that, because of the way that the U.S. tax code is written, maybe you can actually do some things within that second entity that allows you to spend, create expenditures or spend money, right, through a trust. Or maybe that money is going to end up in a private foundation that gives you a whole nother sort of set of investment opportunities or lending opportunities or granting opportunities, because that's what a private foundation is, right? And then you have something known as a holding company, and we're going to get into that as well. So this is going to be a super brief one-on-one. If you have any people in your life and you want those people to clearly understand, like, give me a glimpse of the secret sauce, Jay, right? Listen, these are the things that we know. I have literally participated in a couple of exits, meaning started a company and sold the company, started a company and sold the company. And every time this happened on the back end, because at the time I didn't clearly understand like the type of real structure you need to have in order to, when you exit a company or you sell a major asset, that it should be going into, and it should have been created so it's in an entity, not in the you, meaning an LLC is nothing more than a pass-through. Okay, you have to structure a different way so that LLC, it's a pass-through, but it's passing through to other entities that can actually create more value out of that capital, right? So you have revenue that comes through, and you want to make sure it goes to entities that are going to be able to spend, invest, or loan, and again, grant, right? And you want to be able to do that. Why is it so important? Because you as a person, human, lending money is not going to give you the sort of security around it, and it's not going to allow you to step outside of this thing known as capital gains. Like you personally taking capital gains to your personal name is not the smartest thing. Okay, you can, but listen, everything I'm sharing with you is in the US code and the federal code. Okay, if you're a part of the Insiders Only Club, this is a complete, like we literally go end to end, but this is like a 6-month training that we go through. We're giving you all of the US code, all of the keys of the kingdom, showing you exactly where it is, how to interpret it, and then how you apply it in your life. It's really, listen, you guys are here because you're successful business owners, and or you want to become a successful business owner. Either way, that like going down that pathway is requiring you to actually level up the way that you see how money, right? How money is flowed through, the entities, right? So I'm going to start this window here, and I know I'm looking at myself, but I'm going to pull up another entity, and I'm sure everybody can see this. Okay, so let me explain. What you see, and I'm sure some of you guys are going to snapshot this, but what you see is just a wireframe as to one of the strategies that can be used to create the type of value that you want out of every single dollar that your business is creating, right? You want to be able to make sure that you can preserve the profit, right? But first off, you have to get to profit. So I want to share one thing with you guys. Okay, let me stop sharing there and let me come back. And I want to make sure that I can just look you straight in the eye and say this. I mentioned that there is a principle, right, that you have to follow when it comes to how you see money. Through your company, you should see money, yes, as revenue, but you should see how can I turn this money into principal. So principal is the type of revenue that you want to preserve it, right? Because if you can preserve as much of the principal as possible, and then employing another strategy, which is profit creation, right? If you're doing that, what ends up happening is that you're kind of creating the environment that you understand, listen, I have to retain principal and I have to create profit. Because when it comes to actually growing your enterprise, here is the number one rule. The number one is never spend the principal, only spend the profit. Meaning that if you have $150,000, right, you get an invoice, or you create a new client relationship, or you just did a launch, you have $150,000, right? Now, fresh capital. Having the difference between you taking that in your LLC and you being a single member, like a pass-through LLC, that simply means that you got $150,000 that's personally aligned with income to you. Thus, then you could be taxed as any other individual who doesn't have a business entity of the type of which that I'm sharing with you. Okay. Again, U.S. code, federal code. If you want to know the U.S. code associated with what I'm going to share with you, you have to go to insidersonly.club. You have to enroll in one of the programs that we have. Okay, go to the very bottom of the page, and you're going to be fine. It does not matter what you join as, but if you want to unlock the keys to the kingdom, you're going to have to go to that page, insidersonly.club. Go down, join. Right. Here's the key, and we have a free plan. Right. Here's the key. The other side is if you never spend the principal, you only spend the profit. Well, what do I do with the principal? Well, what you should be doing is just focusing on taking the principal and immediately investing it. So you're investing principal and you're investing profit. Now, sometimes people think when I say investment, you mean tell me that you want me to go open up a brokerage account and put my money in the market and play the market and see what happens, blah 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 blah. Under certain situations, yes, that's exactly what you want to do. You have to be adventurous here in the United States. You cannot sit pat on your hands hoping like heck that your money is going to outpace inflation. Right. And there's two forms of inflation. Remember, what's one form of inflation? One form is exactly what happens. You just see inflation going up, prices are higher, right? And thus then that inflation is taxing your money. You're getting less value out of it. We all know that. Number two, taxation. Based on the level of taxation without the right entity, I would tell you right now, it's progressive in the United States. At the highest tax rate is at 37% at the federal level. Everybody knows that. Secondarily, depends on where you live. If you're in Las Vegas, yay, no state tax. If you're in Florida, no state tax. Texas, Wyoming, Delaware, there's a few states, right? And there's a reason why people are exiting certain states and going into non-tax states because it's the same United States, right? The same United States that's to California, and California just upped their numbers to 14% at the highest tax rate. If you're somebody that's in that $253,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, California is taking 14.4% of those. 14% of those dollars last year, and for many years before this year, it was 13.4. Now they bumped it up another 6%. They just say, let's get an extra, 0.6 of a point. They're not gonna miss it. We need it. Well, I'm gonna share this with you. If you go to Las Vegas, isn't that not in the United States? Do they not have a 14% VIG, right? For all of you, all of you, what's the name of the movies? The Godfather movies, right? And Donnie Brasco, they always talk about the VIG. What's the VIG? The VIG is the fee. So you have a fee of 14% that you don't have in Nevada, a fee of 14% in California that you don't have in Texas, and so forth and so on. So when you put that thing and think about your future, right? Think about the future of the things that you know that you have to do. Imagine having an additional 14% more profit every single year. Some businesses only have 14%, period. And then they have to break off all of the federal, which is the federal, the state, which is the state. You can't change the federal tax, but you can change the state tax. And this is not an affront on any of these other states that have these higher tax rates, because the people that are running those corporations, because every one of these states is a corporation, right? The way that board, right, is running that corporation from the governor all the way down, they made a decision that they want to actually put that number on the front end in terms of income. So they're going to tax individuals at a big number in California. Then people start looking at value. When that's a whole nother conversation, right? What value are you getting by domiciling your business in California versus in Texas? Elon Musk, what did he do? This guy's got an electric company, right? All electric, everything he's doing, manufacturing, like some of the greatest technology, great work processes, leveraging everything, has a great team. The staff is killing it. But guess what? He's like, if I have to pay an extra 14% or more in California versus going to Texas, he just increased the profitability for that particular manufacturing business by moving the headquarters down to Texas and running the majority of what they have in Texas, even though they still have a individual, like in Fremont, they still have a plant there, but they've taken probably 80% of the impact of 14.4, erased it and moved it down to Texas. So particularly in the car business, when you're in the car business, what is it? These car companies are dealing with like 5 to 10% profit margins on every vehicle. And many, if they're trying to sell an electric vehicle, those cars themselves are what? They're not even getting profit out of them. It's costing them to actually sell an electric vehicle, according to all the big boys except for Tesla. So where am I going with this? Make a decision as to how you want to set up from the very beginning your tax structure. Now, Elon Musk has proved to us, you can actually still, in the midst of running a successful organization, move your whole operation to another state. You see, because you're in the entire United States when you're a United States citizen, right? We could do this. We can move our business wherever we want. So don't be locked into thinking that you have to do it a certain way. Contractually, if you're a doctor and you're in California and you're like, man, if I go down to Texas I have to get relicensed. Well, you have to think about the impact of what it means to be a doctor in California with all of the headwinds that you have and having a declining population. You know that if there's 8 million people moving in to California every year, there's 6 million leaving. Oh, is it the opposite? If there's 6 million moving in and there's 8 million leaving, there's a $2 million gap, meaning there's 2 million people leaving California more than's coming in. Now, some people will be like, look, that's a good thing. Well, listen, when you're talking about the long haul in a scenario, that is not good for a state to have a declining tax base. Hence the reason why they had to up the taxes, because they had less citizens actually creating more wealth for the state. Those people are leaving. And so thus the tax had to go up to 14%. So that was just a little bit of a diatribe, I know, but let's get back to the fact. You cannot avoid taxation in America. You can only structure it. So thus then when you are paying taxes, you're paying taxes based on new profits that you are generating. And so you can pay those taxes. It makes it a lot easier to pay taxes out of profit. And I'm not talking about capital gains in a sense. I'm talking about, what if you knew that the principal that comes into your company, you got $100,000, and for every 100,000, you're able to turn it into $20,000 worth of profit, no matter what, every single year. Okay, so who wouldn't want a 20% gain on their money? So I'm going to give you the keys to that. I'm going to tell you exactly right now some of the things. I'm going to give you one real valuable nugget that if you do this thing, it's going to dramatically increase your opportunity to actually leverage many of the things that some of the world's largest organizations, these multinational corporations, they're all domiciled here. They all have businesses in the United States. Why? Because the United States is the world's largest economy, right? So with the world's largest economy, what does it need more than anything else? It needs to be able to have consumers, and it needs to have manufacturers. It needs to have creators. And the way that the United States is organized, we have a favorable tax, an entire favorable tax code for creators. If you're in the business of creating jobs, the United States wants your business. If you're in the business of creating new technologies, that's going to add to the overall sort of technological lead on the global platform, the United States wants your business. So they've organized certain tax strategies that would allow you, if you know, you're going to take full advantage. So I've been holding back long enough. I have to show you this in depth. Okay. I have to show you this in depth. Again, let me see if you can see this. I think I'm fumbling a little bit in my transition in my screen, so you guys have a little patience with me. But I believe that I'm going to be able to give you what you want. Okay, I'm just going to share my entire screen so you guys just, don't laugh at me. Here we go. Let me pull this up. Yep, and I believe you can see this. Let me just make double sure that you can see this. Okay, there we go. All right, so what you see on your screen is basically just a wireframe of a strategy, right? Listen, this is not tax advice. This is not legal advice. This is the full disclaimer saying that these are concepts that if you understand the concept, you can then take it back to your tax professional, your lawyer, whoever your licensed, certified, yada, yada is. But I'm telling you, you have to be able to bring concepts to them. Do not assume that your attorney or whoever that individual is, okay, is going to be able to give you everything that you need. You have to assume that that's not going to happen, okay? You have to assume that they know what they know, but they don't know what you need to know, okay? And the fact of the matter is, most of the time, they're not in business to do anything that would be deemed as like, well, why would I do that? If most CPAs, if they don't have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients, okay, if they don't, guess what they're doing? If they don't have hundreds of clients who are doing something that is, let's just call it a strategy, right? Of which that they're not super familiar with, guess what's going to happen? Those individuals, right? Those individuals are going to be in a scenario where they're not going to have the type of knowledge of which that they want their tax professional or their legal professional to present to them. So this is a really simple strategy. First off, I mentioned US code. So it's maybe a little blurry for some of you guys, but I just want to share this part. We're leveraging, just in this particular scenario, something known as a 501c2 and a 501c3. Okay, these are two sort of entities. They have this symbiotic relationship, right? And if you have them, which we do, if you have them, it allows you to do some things within the business structure that allows you to take advantage of something that people have been hearing all the time. It's called licensing, right? But there's variations, and people are like, oh, well, this is how you handle that. We're going to share with you. This is the keys. The keys is if you have a 501c2, which is a non-tax corporation. Essentially, it's a holding company that has specific requirements. If you operate within the white lines of those requirements, you can leverage the 501c2. Why is that so important? So here's a holding company, right? 501c2. And it actually has something inside of it. So a holding company has to have entities. In this case, it has to have a licensing or a passive income entity. Title holding company property and collecting income from it. What does this mean? Holding title to property, okay? This refers to legal ownership by a two entity where the entity holds the title and manages the property, but does not engage in active business operations. That means that it cannot be a construction company that's swinging hammers, hiring people. It can't have that sitting inside of it if, in fact, you want to get the full benefit of what the two does. And I'm going to continue. Collecting income from property. This involves generating income from the property, such as rental income. Ding, ding, ding. Is rental income passive? The answer is yes. Lease payments. Why? Because you have a document, right? A title, a deed. You have a contract that says, hey, if you use this stuff, you guys are going to pay money to this thing, right? Or passive income sources. Primarily, the function is to collect this income and pass it to the parent exempt organization, which is typically a what? A 501c3, but not just any. Okay, remember, you have a 501c3. They're over, I believe the number is 28 or 29 different 501cs. Okay, we're talking about a 2 and a 3. Don't go all the way down to 27. I mean, I'm not even concerned with that at this point for this particular conversation. But know this, if you have this 2 and you have a 3, magic happens. Type of property that can be held in a 2. Examples include land, buildings, and other immovable structures such as commercial properties, residential buildings, office spaces, and similar real estate assets, okay? Which is a real property, meaning does it control it, right? But there's no business. Like the business is sitting there, and income that comes through that thing that's sitting there is not tied to the operation of that entity, that real property. You can then lease it, and any money you're getting from that lease, right, for that particular building, that is considered passive, okay? Personal property. And I have to tell you this. We're not talking about running a management company out of your 2. That's not passive enough. Passive is that you have an agreement, and then you have one entity, and all that's sitting there is a contract that says every single month, because it's giving access to this individual company, this management company, for this thing, as money comes in for that thing, the management company is going to send a portion of that via license agreement back to the entity that is sitting inside the 2, the passive income LLC, okay? Next, personal property is included in this. Tangible, movable property such as machinery, equipment, and furniture that is used in connection with real property to generate income. So these are just property types, right? But what I want to share with you is the holding company is saying, hey, I just want it to be, I need the income to be coming from anything that's working, but I can't touch it as working. I can't have a business inside of me that's actually running that play. Here's the 2. Let me give you another viewpoint. A 2 can hold an LLC and it can receive licensing fees as passive income. The holding LLC, remember we said the 2, what is it doing? It must generate income primarily through passive activities. Okay, great. Licensing and fees, that as a passive income. Well, acceptable passive income is licensing fees can be considered passive if they are derived from brand licenses and similar resources. Okay. Key points of compliance. Passive income generation. The LLC must primarily generate income through passive means such as rents, leases, and licensing fees. Income distribution. All net income from the LLC must be passed to the 501c3 organization. Purpose alignment. The activities of the LLC must align with the tax-exempt purpose of the 501c2. It doesn't say align with the 501c3. You see, the 501c2 is a business, okay? Typically, you're not running a business out of a 501c3. It itself, all it's looking for is ways to take passive income, whether that was granted to it, whether that income was donated to it, whether it had investments in it. And that 3, what is it doing? It's simply growing assets. It's in the charter. This thing has to grow assets. And if it's going to grow assets, I'm going to tell you this part. If it's growing assets passively, you want that passive income to be coming from the 2. It's going to then pass it to the 3. And why is that so important? It's so important because, look, here's the conclusion. Holding an LLC that generates licensing fees as passive income is generally accepted for a 2, provided that the LLC's activities remain passive and the income is passed to the 3. Did I tell you that compliance with tax-exempt conditions? I gave you the conditions. What does that simply mean? That means that in the case, let's say you have a product company, LLC. You can take, with a license agreement, take a portion of those because this LLC, the licensing LLC, it's the one that has the intellectual property. It's going to license it to another entity. That entity is then going to pay whatever, 10%, 30%, 50%, whatever that is, whatever you charge for the license to use that particular license, those dollars are going to flow back to this licensing LLC. It's all structured. It's all documented. This is exactly what's happening. Because it's now passive income when it comes from a working company and then it comes in via licensing, it becomes a passive income. That passive income, what is the stipulation? It has, the only way a 2 can receive income is through passivity. It has to be passive, okay? And lastly, the 2 has to, by mandate, it has to take those dollars and it has to pass those dollars to the 3. By doing it that way, if it was $100,000 that came from a products company in a month and it went to the licensing company, or $1 million, there is no cap on it. Thus, then those licensing dollars are in a non-tax entity, but it itself can't spend the money. It has to give them to what is a structural partner. That's what I said. Understand foundational structures. Structural partner. This 501c3 is now receiving that income. And what can it do? I don't know. Granting. What is granting? Oh, it can take a charitable organization now and fund that charitable organization so you can do the actual work at that community level that you always wanted to do. But it's always been like a top on things. You couldn't do it all the way because when you put money directly into a charity, you have to spend X amount and you can't even run a business out of a charity. That's the reason we set this up. Again, I buried the lead. If you're going to have a successful company, make sure you have the right structures. If you have the right structures, know how to leverage them. And if you want to know more about this, insidersonly.club, or you can email 369@insidersonly.club. We will put you on. This is something that you need to know. I don't care what kind of business that you have to know. I don't care what kind of business you're going to have, but you have to know exactly, principally, what you need to do. And with that, listen, my name is Jay Lawrence. I'm doing my best. As Jay-Z once said, I'm giving you $1 million worth of game for $9.99. I'm trying to find myself in this. I just want you guys to know that it's really sort of impactful for you to be able to kind of lean in to this type of knowledge, these type of structures. It's a thing, right? Like give yourself a fighting chance. Knowledge is what you're missing. Knowledge is what you get inside Insiders Only Club. Again, now I'm signing off. I'm Jay Lawrence. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.